The most important battle in Star Wars history was not fought on the Death Star or in the Emperor's throne room. It happened on Naboo in 32 BBY, determined by a series of ray shields and a double-bladed lightsaber. Dave Filoni, the creative force behind much of modern Star Wars, explicitly stated that the fight between Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul was actually a battle for Anakin Skywalker's soul. Qui-Gon was the father figure Anakin desperately needed. When he fell, Anakin was left with a brother in Obi-Wan, and that difference changed galactic history. But what if those laser gates had opened 10 seconds sooner? What if Qui-Gon Jinn survived to train the Chosen One? Our timeline splits in the Theed generator complex. In the original history, Qui-Gon Jinn is isolated, tired, and struck down by Maul's aggression. In this new reality, Qui-Gon manages to parry that fatal blow just long enough for the ray shields to deactivate. Obi-Wan Kenobi rushes in, not as a grieving avenger, but as a focused partner. Together, Master and Apprentice overwhelm the Sith Lord. Maul, unable to handle two Jedi simultaneously, is either captured or killed definitively. Qui-Gon survives. This single survival creates a massive ripple effect. Anakin Skywalker now has the Master who actually fought the Council to train him, rather than the one who took him on out of obligation to a dying wish. The relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin was defined by brotherhood, bickering, and eventually tragic misunderstanding. Obi-Wan was a strict adherent to the code, often criticizing Anakin for his feelings. Qui-Gon Jinn was different. He was a maverick who viewed the code as a guideline, not a shackle. Under Qui-Gon, Anakin finds a teacher who validates his emotions rather than suppressing them. When Anakin expresses fear, Qui-Gon wouldn't dismiss it as a path to the dark side. He would teach him to understand it. This mentorship fills the emotional void that Palpatine later exploited. Anakin needed a father to guide him, not a big brother to compete with. The death of Shmi Skywalker was the catalyst for Anakin's first massacre. Obi-Wan and the Council largely ignored Anakin's nightmares about his mother, telling him to let go. Qui-Gon Jinn, however, understood the living force and the value of connection. He was the one who arranged Anakin's freedom in the first place. Seeing Anakin's distress, Qui-Gon would likely take action years before Attack of the Clones. He might not officially bring her to Coruscant, but he would ensure her safety, perhaps moving her to a secure world. By removing the fear of losing his mother, Qui-Gon eliminates the primary trigger for Anakin's descent into darkness. Count Dooku's fall to the dark side is often attributed to his disillusionment with the Republic, but the death of his former apprentice, Qui-Gon, was the final push he needed to join Sidious. In Tales of the Jedi, we saw Dooku deleting Camino archives, but he hadn't fully committed until after Naboo. If Qui-Gon returns alive, Dooku pauses. Qui-Gon was Dooku's link to humanity. With his student proving that the Sith have returned, Dooku might feel vindicated rather than hopeless. Instead of becoming Darth Tyrannus, Dooku remains a political idealist within the Order, or leaves peacefully, depriving Palpatine of his key separatist leader and the face of the war. Sheev Palpatine spent over a decade grooming Anakin Skywalker, stepping in as a kindly grandfather figure whenever Obi-Wan was too critical or distant. This manipulation required a lonely, misunderstood boy. With Qui-Gon Jinn present, that loneliness simply does not exist. Qui-Gon was a master of sensing intent and famously distrusted politicians. He would likely sense the shadow surrounding the Chancellor much earlier than other Jedi. Whenever Palpatine tried to whisper poison in Anakin's ear, Qui-Gon would be there to offer a healthier perspective. The Chancellor finds himself walled off from his prize, unable to drive a wedge between master and apprentice. The Jedi Council in the prequel era was obsessed with the cosmic force, the big picture, the future, and political stability. This focus made them rigid and blind to the immediate emotional needs of their students. Qui-Gon championed the living force, which emphasized the present moment and instinct. For a volatile, powerful Force user like Anakin, this philosophy is the perfect medicine. Instead of being told to suppress his massive power, Anakin is taught to flow with it. He learns mindfulness rather than repression. Under this guidance, Anakin's Chosen One abilities develop naturally, without the arrogance or anxiety that plagued him in the original timeline. Anakin's love for Padme Amidala became a toxic secret that ate him alive from the inside. He feared expulsion from the Order, which drove him to Palpatine. Qui-Gon Jinn, however, was no stranger to love. In Legends lore, he had his own deep attachment to Tal. Even in canon, he often bent rules he found useless. If Anakin confessed his feelings to Qui-Gon, the response wouldn't be expulsion. It would likely be caution and understanding. Qui-Gon might even help Anakin find a way to balance his duty with his heart, removing the shame and secrecy that the Sith Lord used as leverage. If the Clone Wars still break out, which is less certain without Dooku leading the Separatists, Qui-Gon's role would be controversial. He was a peacekeeper, not a soldier. While other Jedi generals rushed to leave clone battalions, Qui-Gon might have refused a military title, much like he refused a seat on the Council. He would likely focus on diplomacy and ending the conflict through negotiation. This example teaches Anakin that war is a failure of the Jedi, not their glory. Anakin doesn't become the hero with no fear who craves battle. He becomes a protector who fights only when absolutely necessary, keeping his soul intact. In the original timeline, Yoda assigned Ahsoka Tano to Anakin to teach him responsibility. But a Qui-Gon-trained Anakin is already responsible. He is grounded, mature, and less prone to reckless outbursts. Does he still get a Padawan? Perhaps. But the dynamic changes. Instead of two reckless teenagers running into danger, it becomes a stable lineage of 3 generations: Qui-Gon, Anakin, and Ahsoka. Qui-Gon's wisdom would prevent the Council from mishandling Ahsoka's trial. He would never allow her to be cast out for a crime she didn't commit. Ahsoka stays in the Order, and Anakin's faith in the Jedi remains unbroken. Qui-Gon Jinn was right about the Jedi Council losing their way. He saw their arrogance and their entanglement with the Senate long before the war. With him alive, these criticisms aren't silenced. He becomes a vocal opposition to Mace Windu and Yoda's dogmatic approach. He teaches Anakin that loyalty to the Force supersedes loyalty to the Council. This is a critical distinction. In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin felt he had to choose between the Jedi and Padme. Qui-Gon offers a third path, being a servant of the light without being a blind servant of the institution. This nuance saves Anakin from feeling trapped. The Jedi believed the Chosen One would destroy the Sith. They were right, but they misunderstood the method. They thought it meant simply killing bad guys. Qui-Gon understood that balance was internal. By the time 19 BBY arrives, Anakin Skywalker is a Jedi Master in his own right, perhaps even sitting on the Council not as Palpatine's spy, but as a respected warrior. His power levels are off the charts, but his temperament is controlled. He is the realized potential of the prophecy, a being of immense power, who understands both fear and love, but is ruled by neither. He is the Jedi the Force intended. Without a corrupted Dooku to lead the war, and without a vulnerable Anakin to turn, Palpatine's grand plan begins to crumble. Order 66 relies on the Jedi being spread thin and distracted, but also on having a powerful enforcer to march on the temple. Palpatine might try to accelerate his plans, perhaps initiating a false flag attack or trying to frame Qui-Gon. But he lacks the pieces. He doesn't have his Vader. If he reveals himself, he faces not just Mace Windu, but a united front of Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and a fully realized Anakin Skywalker. That is a fight the Sith Lord cannot win. There is no duel on Mustafar in this timeline. No high ground, no burning lava, no mechanical suit. The confrontation happens in the Chancellor's office. When Palpatine reveals himself, Anakin doesn't hesitate or feel conflicted. He has his father figure, Qui-Gon, standing beside him. They confront the Sith Lord together. Palpatine, formidable as he is, falls before the combined might of the Skywalkers and the Kenobis. The Sith are destroyed, but the Jedi Order is also forever changed. The exposure of Palpatine's plot proves Qui-Gon's warnings about the Republic's corruption were correct all along. The Order must reform or die. In the aftermath, the Jedi Order inevitably splits or evolves. Qui-Gon Jinn was never comfortable with the dogmatic views of the High Council. With the Sith gone and the Republic reorganizing, Qui-Gon and Anakin might establish a new enclave, one that allows for family, emotion, and balance. Luke and Leia are born not in secrecy, but as the first generation of a new kind of Jedi. They aren't hidden on Tatooine or Alderaan. They are raised by their parents. The Skywalker saga becomes a story of rebuilding and hope, rather than a tragedy of redemption. The galaxy is healed not by war, but by better parenting. Ultimately, this beautiful timeline remains a fantasy because the Force required a different balance. George Lucas and Dave Filoni have suggested that the tragedy was necessary to break the stagnation of the galaxy. The Jedi had to fall to be reborn. Qui-Gon had to die so that the stakes of the Duel of the Fates meant something. But looking back at the branching paths of history, it is tragic to realize how close the galaxy came to peace. It all hinged on one man, one green lightsaber, and a few seconds of difference in a reactor room on Naboo. Qui-Gon Jinn was the Jedi who followed the will of the Force over the rules of the Council, and his absence created the Darth Vader we know. While we can dream of a timeline where Anakin Skywalker sat happily on the Council with his children, the story we got serves as a powerful warning about the failure of institutions and the necessity of love. The Duel of the Fates wasn't just a fight. It was the hinge upon which the entire galaxy turned. If you want to explore more alternate timelines, check out our next video. What if Anakin never left the Council chambers?